Hello everyone, my name is Nevaeh Locklear. Today I'm going to be talking about 4 of the common cognitive biases. First, I'm going to go over what cognitive means, then what biases means, and then cognitive bias and what it stands for together. So when you look at cognitive and what cognitive means, cognitive is basically a mental process, a mental state process that our brain has to go through. And then bias means an error that happens when we're thinking kind of like what just happened, and it's your thought process goes blank kind of. So when cognitive and bias are put together, you look at them and it's like when your brain's looking at a memory, it's only looking at half of a memory, if that makes sense. It's like a shortcut. It only looks at half. And sometimes they can lead to poor decisions. So when looking at my 4 common cognitive biases, I have confirmation, anchoring, hindsight, and availability. First I want to talk about confirmation because confirmation is often looked at as a bad bias because it only tells our mind only tells us like half the truth, if that makes sense. The tendency to only notice information that supports what we already believe while ignoring any negative, basically, or anything that could challenge us. So when looking at someone who wants to try a diet, anything that's negative they're not going to believe until they try it, because it's a diet. Everyone thinks that all diets are the same kind of, but they're not. So they're going to look at the positive stories, the positive outcomes. They're not going to dig deep into the negative and not so great stories. And then we have anchoring bias. This bias distorts our judgment and it makes us choose basically unfair options. And it relies too heavily on basically the first information piece that we get from like any story or anything. So you might, if you're trying to get like your first car or whatever, and you see a car that's $30,000 and then a car that's $25,000, you probably gonna choose the $25,000 one, even if it's actually overpriced to its real value, if that makes sense. So my last 2 biases that I have are hindsight biases and availability biases. Hindsight biases prevents our honest reflection and it keeps us from learning from our mistakes. So whenever something happens, we feel like we knew it all along, even if we didn't. And an example would be a high school basketball game. Before the game, nobody knows the outcome, and after the high school team wins or whatever, you hear all these people talking about, oh, I knew we were going to win this, that, and the third, but you didn't. And availability biases, it skews our perception of risk, and that leads to fear-based choices. It happens when we overestimate the importance of events that come easily to mind. So basically, whenever here recently, I would say in the summer, we heard all about these plane crashes and people were getting scared to start taking trips anywhere using planes. But if they look statistically, car accidents are very common, more common than a plane crash. So looking back at the 4 common cognitive biases, confirmation, anchoring, hindsight, and availability, it often shows that your brain will play tricks on you. And the tricky part is that the biases often live in blind spots, and the blind spots when they come into play, we don't even realize our thinking is disoriented. And if we pause and question ourselves and we apply critical thinking, then you could probably put the bias back to the past and make better, clearer decisions. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope this went well.